almost got fired for choosing React in our enterprise app. React was supposed to ease our development. Instead, it created roadblocks. Okay. I like the sounds of this. Probably ChatGPT is my guess. Nope, it's a real photo. All right. It's summer 2018. Nice. Good year. My boss, Adrian, classic Adrian boss, asked me to join him in a Skype call with James, the CTO of the big Canadian company. While getting to know each other, I find out that James is a smart guy with big ambition. His vision is to migrate a massive desktop. What is this? It's C#. What is WP? It's something foundation, web page foundation. What is WPF? I remember WPF being like one of the most popular C# things. 2013 presentation. Yeah, Windows presentation form. Damn. Windows presentation framework. Damn. Application to a web in the cloud. Okay. Yeah. I like his friendly attitude, and I can tell that he is eager to collaborate with us. He already has developed a partner in India, but they lack experience in building web applications. Adrian and I follow the standard approach for this situation. Did we just read big tech company and also offshoring work? Classic Canada. We have a few, because they're like, well, you can't call them engineers, okay? They're software developers, because if you call them an engineer, they need paperwork. We have a few more calls, and then we start the discovery phase in which we try to grasp the big picture and find the non-functional requirements. These are the main points we should focus on. 1, a big application. Hell yeah. That's point 1. More than 220 pages, of which most are maintenance screens, around 20% of which are highly customized. Sounds like a job for HTMX. It already sounds like HTMX. Literally, this sounds like HTMX. Displays large amount of data, especially in grids with all kinds of features, grouping, column freezing, row expanding, custom columns, you name it. Sounds like HTMX. Modular architecture, allowing multiple teams to work on the project at the same time. Multi-year project. New features will be added over time. No offline support is required. HTMX. Quick onboarding for new team members, especially for the .NET developers working on the old desktop application. Okay, I can't believe they're about to choose React for this. I'm not going to lie to you. When I hear a grid of a lot of data, when I hear this plus React, that sounds crazy, okay? Like Solid.js, Svelte, Vue, like anything but something that requires a diffing in JavaScript, then to update the dot. Like, this is crazy. It had to be so slow. As an architect, my role is to create technical proposal that contains the architecture details, approach, roadmap, guidelines, and most importantly, the technology stack that will be used. James mentioned multiple times he wants a future-proof technology. I feel like we just read something about this. Didn't we just read something about how you should only learn React and you should only use React? Classic golden hammer problem, right? You can use React. You just got to know when it is completely a terrible choice to make. For me, that's every time. But for other people, that can be only some of the time. And he is not in favor of Angular. Good job, James. Because it has a bad reputation after AngularJS got deprecated. Oh! That's why? Huh. I always thought it was because it's terrible. I didn't realize that it got a bad reputation after deprecating. Jeez. I've been misinformed by the internet again. James mentioned multiple times that he wants to future-proof technology, and he's not. Okay, I've already read that. James wants to future-proof. Okay, I'd already successfully implemented a few small and medium-sized projects using both Angular and React, so I'm not totally attached to any of them. I feel like I could either could do the job. For this project, I picked React with Redux. Damn, you just doubled down on garbage collection on a large grid-based application. I'm telling you, you're about to just get. I am not convinced Redux is good. I am not convinced. I have become that Hadios person to the core, which is application state is the HTML, which I regret 2 years later. No regrets. We got some regrets, boys. We got some regrets. We assigned a team of 3 developers to work on the proof of concept, and after 2 months, it's success. Super responsive user interface, blazingly fast build times, and high development speed. Everyone is happy. You know, there's something about the fact that I have to build my JavaScript. I have to build my dynamic programming language into another dynamic programming language to be ran on the web. Something about that still just hurts me somewhere deep inside. You know what I mean? Like, there's some place deep inside of me that always hurts just a little bit, knowing that I have to build JavaScript. Okay? It's just a personal opinion. I'll just leave it out there. Roadblock number 1. .NET developers join the team. Of course, it's a roadblock. It's a .NET developer. Got him, Beastco. After the proof of concept, it's time for the developers from the client's outsourcing team to join in. We hadn't started the knowledge sharing sessions yet, and the CTO sends me an email saying, "Hey, Razvan. We really have to meet tomorrow with my outsourcing team." Classic email. Nothing like a good old-fashioned one-line email from your CTO. I'm about to get fired. We have we have that meeting, and the technical lead ambushes me with questions and solutions. Nothing like getting ambushed with questions, and when the person already has a solution. Why haven't you used Rust? By the way, Rust is a fully functional. You're like, dude, shut up. Where is the dependency injection? What do you mean by there is no need for one? Here is one in Versify.js. Functional components? No. We don't like them. Let's use class components. Okay, I'm partially actually on this guy's team. Okay, here's the rant that nobody likes, but hooks are just complicated classes. Change my mind. I wish they would have doubled down on classes and just figured out a better way to do state, and then we wouldn't have had this really big mess with everything they're doing. Anyways, why do these functions just hang around, and why aren't they encapsulated inside service classes to make them static? What? That question doesn't even make any sense. See, okay, so this is just a problem with C#, right? This is just C# thinking. This is just, the big capital O-O-P thinking right here, right? This is just what's happening. When you can't look at a function without it being a static member of a class, you just need to go sit down for a little bit. You know, let your brain stew on it for a moment, okay? Not everything needs a namespace. Require is a namespace. You know what I mean? Where is the retry policy for the API? Let's implement using one named Poly.js. Okay. Is it crazy to me that people reach for libraries for everything? Like everything. A retry policy is like we're not talking something crazy here. It's called cringe. Is that what it's called? I mean, at one point it was industry standard. You know what I mean? So it's not cringe. It's just like that. It's like, it's how you grew up as a developer, right? A lot of us have the ability to kind of grow up through kind of like a paradigm shift, you know? So I luckily, started at the tail end of Java is the greatest thing for everything, right? So I started my education in 2005, my proper education. Didn't really get like Dytel, Poly.js is a Netflix lib. Shut the front door. Poly.js. I no longer work at Netflix. I don't work at Netflix. I've never worked at. I don't work at Netflix. Okay, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Why would I ever do that? And let's see. And the one that annoys me most. How can I run it using Visual Studio and not Visual Studio Code? Oh, that's just called sucks to suck. It's clear to me they want to use .NET guidelines and design patterns in React. I have seen this happen many times. Developers who have had a hard time adapting to new technologies' way of doing things. So I'm not afraid of getting into the debate about why those are unusual patterns for React. Yeah, I mean, you're already setting yourself up for failure. Even regardless of the fact that you're about to do a gigantic grid using React and getting like half-second move times. Like, besides for that little fun fact you're about to hit, like, what's happening here, this is just like sucks to suck. You can't stop that. But in this case, the CTO is backing his team, which is normal. He had known me for just 2 months, and while he had been working with his team for many years, I have to make a compromise and agree with their proposals. Okay, whoa. Well, like, you could also say if we do this, the project is probably doomed what you're asking for. I just realized that React is not Java or .NET developer friendly. Angular would have been a better choice in this case because of the similar design patterns. And yet, Angular only sucks because of the Angular JS deprecation. I feel lied to right now. Don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, walking away is an option. It really is. Roadblock number 2. There is never only React. Okay, I like what's happening. React is an unopinionated library. That is like the most false thing that anyone has ever literally said in its lifetime. React is single-handedly the most opinionated library out there. It leaks its interface. Anytime you want to use JavaScript of any kind, you have to wrap it in some React library. It is most certainly a framework, and second off, it is most certainly hyper-opinionated. Its opinions of how crappy you can write code is unopinionated, right? You can write the world's shittiest code. That's fine. They're okay with that. You can also write pretty nice code. They're also okay with that. But that's just a crazy take, which means it doesn't have an opinion about how you implement cross-cutting concerns. Yeah, that's why you have to use Redux. And then you have to use React Redux. And context definitely doesn't exist. So it is your and your team's responsibility to develop an opinion about how to do it, and especially what other libraries you want to use. Of course, you will use third-party libraries because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Of course you will, you son of a bitch. And there are so many options for everything in React. Of course there is. Why wouldn't there? Why wouldn't there be? For the proof of concept, I already had an opinion about how we should handle most of the cross-cutting concerns. Now they had to be revalidated with the new team members. This is a minimal list of the topics to discuss. Which router should be used? See, isn't it fun to solve HTTP in JavaScript? Don't you love that we get to do that? Like, isn't that great? It's not like there already isn't a thing that already exists called HTTP, but instead you get to reinvent an entire routing system in React. Yay! Besides Redux, what should we use for async actions? Trunk, Saga? We should use Axios or the Fetch browser API. Redux Forms, Formic, or Final Form. Styled components. Oh gosh, dear sweetness, please. Lord have mercy on this project. Makestyle, Sass, or plain CSS. Doesn't even list Tailwind. The internationalization library, everybody knows you use the one from Yahoo that keeps on going, whatever it's called. So we spent another 3 weeks making those decisions. I can feel you screaming at me. Come on, man. There's no way it takes 3 weeks to pick those libraries. Of course it does when you're doing whiteboard masturbation. Everything takes longer with whiteboard masturbation because here's the deal. The first time you do whiteboard masturbation, it feels great, and you're very excited about it. And then all of a sudden, you really start leaning into all these questions, and it just takes longer and longer for you to achieve, a closure. And all of a sudden, you have to get through you have to do it 6 times. I mean, by the 6th time, it takes a long time to achieve closure. You know what I mean? It takes a long time. They're just adding everything in NPM. They're literally adding everything in NPM. They're actually just a mirror for NPM. You could actually use them as a mirror for everything that's possible in NPM. Well, welcome to enterprise projects. There are many decisions. For each one, you have to create decision criteria, do research, validate findings by creating a proof of concept, presenting findings, document everything in a decision log, and keep libraries up to date. It takes a crazy amount of time, and it's not even fun. I like that last part. Like, when you describe such a process, you have to end with, it's not even fun. Really? Really? You're telling me you have to not only do the thing, you then have to write out the thing you did? And then you have to keep your libraries up to date with NPM, which is just a crazy town? Did they follow Semver? Probably not. And I'm not even considering the time that each developer spends on learning all those third-party libraries. I never saw 2 React projects with the same dependencies, project structure, or guidelines. This means the knowledge is not transferable from project to project, as it can be in the case of Angular or Vue. After those 3 weeks of not making any progress in implementing functional user stories, the CTO starts to worry. Really? You know, so I'm gonna make a judgment call right here. I'm gonna make some judgment go. I'm gonna make some judgment happening right here. If you let teams of people make decisions, nothing will happen. Real talk. You let teams of people make decisions, it won't work. This is why at Netflix we do this thing called an informed captain. The captain takes consent, or takes consent, figures out what they want, and makes a decision. And it's up to the informed captain to make the decision. Because you know what? Here's the real deal. The moment you have like 18 people try to make a decision, because here's the big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize when it comes to the decision making in general, is that there are usually two sides to almost every kind of decision you're generally making. And in some sense, each one of them have a lot of good associated with them and a lot of bad associated with them, right? And so each one has its own trade-offs, and that's that, right? It's just what happens. I know I'm in the way of bad down here. Just deal with it. But then there exists this like spectrum where it looks kind of like this, where you kind of have this dip right here, and it kind of feels like bad stays about the same. And so when you start compromising constantly, you get into this thing that I like to call the no good zone, where you just fall into the pit of bad. It's just bad. That's all it is. It's just constant bad, and there's not very much good to it because you've conceded all the good on this side. You've conceded all the good on this side. Nobody's happy in the center. They'll never be happy in the center. I'm also exceptionally disappointed I didn't actually get to the point of making a dick. So I'm a little bit upset I didn't draw a dick somehow. I just fall into drawing them, but too bad. And so this is kind of my general idea of what ends up happening when you let everyone make a decision. I think this bottom line is probably incorrect. It should probably look something like this, right? Where it bottoms out right here, where on this side, there is some bad, but maybe it's a different, you choose the bad and you're okay with it. On this side, you choose the bad, you're okay with it. On this side, you're forced into the bad and it's all of it, right? It just sucks. I hate compromising, like a total compromisation, right? You got to just compromise on a couple items. It's just the worst. Roadblock number 3, React hooks get popular. Oh no. Oh no. After 9 months, we have more than 50 pages created. The developers notice the functional components are as good as class components and start using them. So now the project no longer follows the original coding guidelines. It's more like a personal choice for each developer, and for me, that's okay. Yeah, I would say that that's pretty much okay. I don't mind working with class components or functional components, but honestly, when you go into some, my only one big critique I see with a lot of functional components is because you get one function to accomplish things. Who here has been in a project where there's a functional component that's literally 300 lines long of these just giant one use effect call, followed by some other big call, followed by some other big call, and it just happens, and you're just like, I hate what I'm looking at. I hate what's happening here, and this is just the worst thing ever. It's like, yeah, sure, functional components are great until you have a 5,000 line function, and it just sucks your life down the hole. Of course it's you. It's everybody. You know, like, that's the thing is when you're following a tutorial, it looks incredible. It's beautiful. See, of course. Just extract them all and make them into their own groups. Group them by something. First off, you get into just the worst world here, which is when you reach a sufficient level of hooks, it becomes impossible to find what you want, and you don't even know it exists. You spend all day perusing through files trying to find the thing you need because all the names suck. Let's just face it. There's like get rows by ID, get rows by identifier, get rows by global identifier. And you're just like, what the fuck am I looking at? Right? And now you're just perusing through thing over and over and over again to find the thing you need because eventually you reach that critical mass, right? Have you ever been on a team with 50 people writing a multi-million line code base? It sucks. I've been there. It's just, you just reinvent the wheel constantly. That's all there is to it. And so when I see this, it's like, yeah, I totally get that we should all follow good practices. We should always be abstracting things, always doing the right stuff. But the reality to the situation is that most people don't have time to do the right thing at all points, or they don't perceive they have time. And it's easier for them to make the shortcut now because the pay me now versus the pay me later trade-off just feels so good in the moment, and it always feels like hell later on. Okay, what's the solution? The solution is that all programming sucks, and if you come into it with the idea that people are going to write great code as a requirement for your library, you should just realize that you're having a library that's going to be fundamentally flawed. That's all there is to it. At least functional components, you can refactor things in a different file or different functions. With classes, it is very difficult. I would argue it's very difficult the other way. I would argue that they're both very difficult. When you get to sufficient, because then you start doing these like functors, you start producing these functions, you have to start passing in arguments, you start getting into this really weird world that just totally sucks. Use felt only. I like use felt. Thank you, Finite Singularity, for the raid. I'm not going to unfollow you because that would be bad, but there you go. All right, let's keep on going. I'm not saying that hooks are... are somehow fundamentally worse than class components. And I actually also don't think that class components are fundamentally worse than hooks. I think they're literally the same thing, just looked at from two different angles. All right, anyways. Let's see. React Hooks is released and gets popular. The team has mixed feelings. Some developers are offended by the suggestion that class confuses both people and machines. It really, truly doesn't confuse machines. In fact, often classes can be more optimized than hooks by far. In fact, it's obvious that they're more optimized than hooks. One can claim it confuses people, but I've been confused but this is React drinking their own Kool-Aid. I just don't buy it. While others are enthusiastic about the new coding pattern, all third-party libraries that we are using have added support for hooks, and it looks like the entire React world is going in that direction. So what should we do? Should we deviate from the original coding guidelines and a third way of implementing components? There's no way of going back and migrating existing pages and components to hooks. Yep. The team is in favor of using Redux hooks because there is no need to use Redux Connect. And separate the dump components from the containers. Wow. That kind of sounds exciting. I want to get on some of those dump containers. This makes sense, and we agree that from now on, new pages and components will use hooks. We'll leave the old ones as they are. Yeah, that's a good compromise. This happened. I mean, this is currently the Netflix code base. There's plenty of class components. There's plenty of hook components, right? There's like this in between all the time. That's how we end up with three ways of doing things. There is no consistency anymore. See, again, I don't actually think that's the problem. I think that's the sign of a long-lived project. I mean, who here's been in a long-lived project that just this happens to, right? Type 1 in the chat if you've ever been in a project that's long-lived and this is what happens. For me, absolutely. Hands down. Even before React, this happened. We had Vue 1 and Vue 2, right? One with one way and one with the other way, right? I mean, of course this happened. Long before React, this happens. This happens for everybody. It's just the faster you choose new ways of doing things is the faster a code base becomes inconsistent. This is the entire Android code base? Yeah. Exactly. To make things even worse, some developers start pushing the idea of not using Redux anymore, but use state instead. This means that we will disrupt the idea of having single global state. Suspense is still an experimental feature, and I'm concerned about what will happen when it gets released. Yep, like I said, the faster your UI library moves, the more legacy you'll have in your application. It's fantastic. Roadblock number 4, development is slowing down. Then we did setup for continuous integration. The build took around 3 minutes, including npm install, but now after a year, it takes around 15 minutes. By the way, I do want to say one quick thing. I feel mostly bad about the person reading this because I truly am not convinced it's 100% their fault in the sense that, he has people who he's working with who are fighting for certain ways of doing things and then later on changing their mind to different things. And now we have this, you're just going to have a continuous battle going on. And it's just you got to feel bad. You know what I mean? You got to feel bad for this guy because I'm not convinced that he's done anything wrong other than he's just trying to play ball with a bunch of different things, all pushing for his, for ways of programming. It totally sucks. We also had to configure Node.js to extend RAM to 4 gigabytes because 2 gigabytes was no longer enough. You had to do the old heap space trick. Old heap space, 496. This is not a big issue. What? By the way, also, what are you doing that requires 4 gigawatts? I mean, I've had to do this once, and it was millions of rows of data being converted into a CSV. I've never had to do it for anything else. The old max old space size, huh? Got to get that going. What is concerning is that developers have started complaining that the builds take so much time that hot reloading stops working after 40 to... Oh my goodness. We're getting the full fall apart here. The hot reloading stops working after 45 to 60 minutes of development, and a restart takes more than 5 minutes, especially for those with Windows machines. Dear sweetness. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, I never even thought about all the C# people are also... They're also going to be developing on Windows. Ooh, that makes things so much more complicated. Linux systems apparently are much faster for Node.js. Sometimes they have to delete Node modules entirely and download dependencies again because it simply won't work otherwise. What can you expect when there are 1,200 plus dependencies in Node modules with a total of 600 megabytes in size? Dude, you're right. Let's just be real here. You're writing a web application that displays some data. Have we jumped the shark in engineering? Yes, we have. For an enterprise application, everything is about cost. Let's say a developer has to restart 6 times a day at an hourly rate of $40 per hour. Wow, you're getting some cheap developers over there. 6 times a day times 5 minutes is 240 days times this times $40 an hour times 8 developer equals $40,000 a year. That is not a big amount for enterprise, but it makes a nice annual bonus for the project sponsors. After all, it's equal to a brand new Tesla Model 3. What's your build time cost? Our build time in JavaScript costs one Tesla Model 3. I like, you know what? We did this actually. So actually at Netflix, when Tesla first came out, I did qualify everything I spent money on by how many Teslas I could buy. We had one that we could buy 200 Teslas a year if they would just make one change. That's a 200 Tesla idea. Can we get this 200 Tesla idea going? Right? And it was just so great because they had to do something. And then at one point, just to really, really stick it home, I started measuring how many Marco Polos could we produce with this change, because we had a change that was over $100 million a year fix, and cost of Marco Polo. Let's see, Netflix. Let's see. Is it on here? Is it public? Yeah, it cost $200 million. And so we were just like, that costs a half of a Marco Polo. And so then I started picking all of our different originals because I knew all of them. And I was just like, oh, that one right there, that one's going to save us 10 unbreakable Kimmy Schmidts, right? And so people were just like, what the hell is happening here? It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to start pointing out these savings. Yeah, I know. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. For an enterprise application, everything is about cost. We already did that. All right. Roadblock number 5. Redux Saga is slowly dying. Most developers disagree with me, but I feel that the big part of the business logic inside Redux async actions. Let's see, hold on. But I feel that a big part of the business logic is inside Redux async actions. Most of the time, it's only place where you can do the validation, API calls, error handling, trigger Redux mutations, or trigger notification toaster. If these are not considered a business logic on the front-end applications, what is? We use Redux Saga, which was a poor decision because it adds unnecessary complexity. Thunk would have been good enough. In enterprise applications, you have to upgrade and revalidate the dependencies once in a while. It is a good practice because you want security updates, performance improvements, and small incremental API changes. That's actually really funny that they think there's performance improvements coming down with new versions of JavaScript. I mean, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good take right there. Yeah, it's a newer version. It's probably faster, right? Right? I feel like there's a meme there. I feel like there's that Padme meme. You know the Padme meme. That it's just, it's a new version of your library. It's probably faster, right? Right? It looks like Redux Saga is being left behind. The last update was more than 1 year ago, and the number of GitHub issues is still increasing without anybody fixing them. Developers love React for 3 reasons: simplicity, flexibility, and ecosystem. Ecosystem. We already talked about this one. It's funny. I don't believe React has a good ecosystem. For everything that needs to exist, also has to exist with an adapter layer, right? You want charts.js, you need React charts.js. You want some other library, you need React dash, whatever that library is. Whereas when you go to Svelte or you go to these other ones, you just use charts.js. So is there an ecosystem for Svelte? Yes, there is. It's actually bigger because it's JavaScript's the ecosystem. It's not some sort of React adapter that's required, right? You don't need a lot of these things. And so React's team enjoy experimenting with new ideas, but this is killing the ecosystem. They should be brave and take blame for it. Dang. And indeed, React is mostly backwards compatible, but the ecosystem around React is not. Developers and third-party libraries will always use the latest features and architectural patterns, while old experiments will be left behind to die. This should not be a problem for small and medium-sized projects because you can adapt much more easily, but for big multi-year projects, these experiments can be deal breakers. Yep. Absolutely. It's already September 2020, and I decided to include Redux Saga in this risk assessment results for the technical steering committee. Because 30% of the business logic was inside Sagas, I marked it as high risk. That was when the CTO lost his temper and blamed me for making poor decisions when we started the project. It was just the spark the product manager needed. He uses this as an opportunity to start start asking questions like, why do we spend so much time on upgrading libraries? Why is development slowing down? Why did the application become buggy and unstable? Damn, I feel bad for this guy. This feels so shitty. You get a team that's wrongly fit for the problem, or at least the base library you chosen, based off the feedback of the CTO. Assuming that all of this story is 100% correct the way it is, I'm at the beginning when he just concedes to all the points of the CTO. I think there and then was a huge problem of his, which is you got to have a backbone. You got to fight for what's going to help you in the future. If you don't fight for the future today, the future is already going to happen and it's going to suck a whole bunch. And so feels bad about that. Things escalated to management level. I spent many hours looking for evidence to prove that we made the best decisions at the time, not the way I want to spend my weekend. Several retrospective meetings later, we are sailing through calm waters again. After all, the project is almost done. It's close to entering maintenance mode. Conclusion: I love React. The copium never stops. I use it for all my personal projects and would love to recommend it for new work initiatives. However, after an unpleasant experience I had, I will not encourage using it for enterprise applications. Not again. By the way, I'm not alone in this. Feels. You got to feel. You got to feel. You got to feel for that. Feels bad for the guy. I feel like truly an unfortunate situation. Really, fight for the right things. You know what I mean? If you knew your team was all about, all these things, like in that first 3-week period when he discovered that the team wanted everything to be effectively like C#, probably should have just went for Angular at that point. Just said, hey, this is truly the way to do it. And also, I don't know if spending more, the CTU should have gotten a couple too. That's what a couple means. 10x devs for $15 an hour each. I know, exactly. The thing is that this is truly what I like to refer to as 10x engineering. And what I mean by that is that a few bad decisions can cause 10x the problems. I truly believe the only 10x engineering possible, which is that it just costs 10x the time to do things. And that's it. React is only as bad as the programmer using it. I disagree with that statement. Anywho, feels very, feel bad for the guy. Great story, though. Hopefully a good lesson to take away. Maybe, I think he was already committed before he knew the team was going to be against him. Yeah, but then he spent 3 weeks spiking it out, right? I feel like at that point, you gotta try to make a call that's better for what you're working with, Either way, it's easy to be an armchair quarterback. Easy to be an armchair quarterback on a Monday morning, right? When the game's already been played, what you should have done, what you should have done then. At the end of the day, sounds like the guy tried his best, but totally sucks, okay? Totally sucks. Too many decision makers, absolutely. Really careful with how many decision makers you make into a project, because too many, first off, it's really hard to blame anybody. Can you really blame that guy when everybody was making decisions? No, you can't. You truly can't. Either way, the name, I don't use React again.